It was just past 5 o'clock in the morning when I spotted something glinting in the low moonlight. At first, I figured it was a trick of the dawn haze drifting over the ranch, just another optical illusion out here in the highlands. But then I saw it again. A thin, silver stream snaking across the fence line and disappearing into the property next door. My water. Specifically, the meticulously filtered, UV-treated well water I rely on for my livestock and slaughterhouse sanitization, being hijacked in the dead of night. The hose extended like a stretched-out lie, and I followed it across the field, through the fence line, and into the backyard of my next-door neighbor, Elaine Hartwell. There she stood, barefoot on her paver driveway in a silk bathrobe, sipping coffee like a queen surveying her estate. She was holding a pressure washer, blasting yesterday's dust off a pearly white Range Rover. My WaterMe infrastructure was being used for a spa day. That was the moment I realized Elaine wasn't just an inconsiderate neighbor. She was a threat to the ecosystem, specifically mine. You don't run a 300-acre working ranch without knowing when something's off. The land tells you. The pipe's grown differently. That morning, when I checked my gauges before starting chores, I knew something wasn't right. The south tank was drawing faster than it should have. My pressure monitor confirmed it. I traced the issue to an auxiliary valve near the rear fence. When I got there, the cover was off. The cap meant for emergency drought contingencies was gone. Instead, a garden hose was connected via a splitter carefully buried beneath a patch of fake turf, even zip-tied to a fence post to keep it steady. It had been done deliberately, covertly, and with just enough plausible deniability to enrage me further. I tried to stay civil. I confronted Elaine, told her she was tapping into a private system I paid to install, maintain, and monitor. That this water wasn't free, and it sure as hell wasn't available for Range Rover detailing. She didn't even flinch. Just took another sip of coffee and said, "It's just overflow. Sharing is caring, right? Overflow." As if my entire water filtration setup was nothing more than a novelty fountain for the cul-de-sac elite. I called the HOA. Another mistake. Their president, Clint, just happened to be Elaine's cousin. He took the call with a mouthful of something and the tone of a man who didn't take anything seriously. "Technically," he said, "that corner of the property line is a bit ambiguous. And Elaine told us she's only using runoff. Honestly, you should be grateful she's putting it to use instead of letting it waste." Grateful. By noon, I received a notice in my mailbox. A citation for negligent water discharge and failure to secure external access points. The fine was $200. Petty, but not the point. Elaine had flipped the script. That evening, I sat on my porch with a beer, watching her host what could only be described as a backyard car wash party. Lounge chairs, pop-up canopy, music. One of her friends held up a drink and said, "This water's incredible. Is it spring-fed?" Elaine laughed. "It's from the ranch next door. They're super chill about it." If by chill she meant calculating how much animal waste I could legally dump across her hedges without breaking a city code, then sure, I was glacier cold. I didn't sleep much that night. I paced, muttered about permits and plumbing laws, imagined revenge scenarios that would make the Greeks proud. Then around 3:14 a.m., staring at the dim glow of my pressure monitor, I had an idea. A dangerous, glorious idea. Years ago, I'd installed a backup runoff pipeline connected to our compost filtration tanks. It hadn't been used in a while, but it still ran parallel to the southern water line Elaine had tapped. With the right reroute, I could send her a message. Legally. Technically. My cousin Jared works with me at the processing plant. He's a mechanic, part-time plumber, full-time chaos specialist. I pitched him the idea. "You're trying to feed her the mood juice?" he asked, eyes lighting up. "That's one way to put it." "I'm in." We ran tests on the compost line, flushed it, checked for integrity, verified that it could withstand pressure. It could. Beautifully. The line once carried residual sanitization water mixed with livestock runoff and compost slurry. Perfectly safe on a microbial level, but no one in their right mind would mistake it for drinking water. We worked at night, tracing her illegal hose connection just far enough to splice in our own reroute. Jared even installed a remote-controlled pressure valve using an old lawn sprinkler rig and a fob from his truck key. By sunrise, it was ready. That day, Elaine hosted what she called brunch and buff, a garden party and free car wash combo. Guests arrived in SUVs, holding mimosas and Tupperware full of deviled eggs. They had no idea they were standing on the brink of a smelly revelation. Elaine picked up the hose like she was blessing a ship. The spray started normal. A light mist shimmered in the sun. Then it clogged. Sputtered. Then it hit. A geyser of brown sludge exploded from the nozzle with enough force to rattle a windshield. Elaine screamed. The Range Rover took the brunt, its shimmering white finish now decorated in streaks of beige and dark brown. Guests scattered. One tripped over a garden gnome and landed face first in the lawn. Another skidded across the pavers, screaming about her sandals. "What is this?" someone shrieked. "It smells like dead cow." "It's chunky. Why is it chunky?" I sipped coffee on my porch and casually tapped record on my ranch security cam feed. Elaine tried to crank up the hose pressure. Big mistake. Another blast surged through, hitting her square in the chest. She staggered back, dripping in what could only be described as slaughterhouse slush. Her friends gagged, cursed, and ran for their cars. And then came the cops. Elaine must have called them mid-hose disaster because 2 cruisers rolled up about 10 minutes later. Officers Tapia and Monroe, both familiar with my ranch, both familiar with HOA drama, stepped out with wary expressions. Elaine met them in the driveway, looking like a survivor from a barbecue explosion. "That man," she said, pointing at me, "pumped sewage into my irrigation. I've been poisoned." I stayed quiet and handed over a USB stick containing surveillance footage, valve logs, and a copy of my water rights. The officers played the footage in their cruiser. Around 30 seconds in, when Elaine was seen installing her splitter on my capped auxiliary line, Officer Monroe raised a brow. "This is your install," he said. "On his system." "But he pumped filth into it." Elaine shrieked. "You activated the valve, ma'am," Officer Tapia said. "You tapped into private property. Can't exactly charge someone for what happens when you illegally connect to their infrastructure." They left her with a warning: cease unauthorized utility usage or face legal action. But I wasn't done. Elaine took it up a notch, called an emergency HOA conduct hearing, accused me of retaliatory sabotage. I showed up with Jared, my documents, and the same USB drive. The board watched the video in silence, ending with Elaine getting a full-body spray of beef broth runoff. When it was done, one board member turned to Clint and asked, "Do we even have jurisdiction here?" "No," someone else said. "That's private ranch land." The hearing adjourned. Clint stepped down 2 days later. Elaine was served a cease and desist. I filed a lawsuit for water theft and utility tampering. Elaine countered with claims of emotional distress and organic exposure. Her lawyer quit a week in. Then came the next act. Elaine's miracle garden. I spotted her digging one morning, building raised beds, hooking up another unauthorized irrigation system. Within a week, glossy flyers appeared in every mailbox advertising Elaine's garden elixir, locally enhanced, eco-friendly, 100% natural. She was bottling my compost runoff, selling it. Neighbors started using it, until one couple, the Millers, noticed a rancid smell in their vegetable beds. Their dog got sick. Mushrooms began sprouting overnight, thick, yellow, toxic-looking. I took one sniff and called the state agricultural board. They sent inspectors. Full hazmat suits. Samples were taken. Bottles confiscated. Elaine insisted it was from the earth. One inspector replied, "Ma'am, people don't water lettuce with plasma." Within days, her website was shut down. She was fined for illegal waste distribution, potential biohazard contamination, and selling unlicensed organic matter. Local news picked up the story. Headline: Suburban Garden Turns Biohazard Nightmare. Elaine went viral. Memes, TikToks, remix videos. A still frame of her mid-spray became an internet sensation. Caption: When your luxury car gets a livestock rinse. She tried to spin it with a tearful video calling me a water hoarder. One commenter wrote, "Ma'am, this isn't Shark Tank." Eventually, she tried to rent out her house, left out the part about the hazmat garden. I watched as prospective renters toured the property, most of them catching a whiff of something not quite right. One teenage girl recognized Elaine from TikTok and screamed, "Mom, it's the meat lady." I laughed so hard I dropped a hay bale. Elaine showed up at my gate one morning with a checkbook and a forced apology. "I'd like to make amends," she said. I took the check, ripped it in half. "You want to make it right? Come scrub the livestock pens. Real fertilizer work. No filters." She stormed off. A week later, I bought the lot next to hers. 2 weeks after that, I unveiled the piece de resistance. An 8-foot resin statue of a rearing cow, standing triumphant, tail flicked. From its behind, a fountain of crystal-clear recycled water bubbled into a trough. A plaque read, "In honor of free-flowing karma." Elaine called every city official she could. But the fountain was up to code. Decorative, functioning, solar-powered, legally perfect. Her home value dropped. Her cousin moved. Trick-or-treaters skipped her house. The HOA quietly rewrote several bylaws to include a new clause. No individual shall operate unauthorized gardening or irrigation systems using unapproved runoff. The cow statue remains. A monument, a warning. And the moral? If you steal from a rancher's well, you better be ready for what flows back your way. Because karma doesn't forget. And neither do I.